Okay, we're recording. So let me also set up, let me just send this to Josephine in a bit.
Maybe just one question. Kennedy?
Yes?
Yes, I just want to know how much.
Pardon, you're breaking?
I think I have seen the question. I've answered myself. It's okay. I've gotten what I wanted. Thanks.
Okay, let me just, I'm trying to get Josephine's other email address because she cannot access her email address on her phone.
It's okay. She can join by phone. It's okay.
Yeah.
Oh, there she is.
I'm not sure if our audio is working though. That's the challenge. So she might need to join with her phone for the audio to work.
It's 2 minutes after the time. I think we have to start everything.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get started. Okay, so welcome everyone to this webinar. I believe you're seeing my screen, and so I'll just get started as we wait for my co-panelists to join us as well. So my name is Kennedy Odokonyero, and I'm the co-moderator for this webinar. And this is, you know, we are as Pharmaceutical Society of Uganda, we have done previous webinars, especially on COVID-19. But then recently we were approached by the Empower School of Health to do a webinar on career opportunities for pharmacists in global health and supply chain. So we are grateful for this partnership between Pharmaceutical Society of Uganda and Empower. So a bit of housekeeping rules. We'll expect your mic to be muted for this webinar to go as smooth as possible. And if you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat box. And we will have some polls. We want to make this webinar as lively as possible. So please participate in this poll. We are recording this webinar, and so we'll make the recordings available on both the pages, the YouTube accounts of Empower and Pharmaceutical Society of Uganda. Also, there's a feedback form when you're leaving the webinar. You'll be required to participate in that feedback form to help us improve the webinar. So I've already mentioned my name. My name is Kennedy Odokonyero. I'm a student of Pharmaceuticals and Health Supplies Management at Makerere University. Currently, I recently started working with Zipline International as a quality consultant. Zipline, I don't know if many of you might not be familiar with it, but it currently operates in Rwanda, Ghana, and the US. So Zipline uses drones to deliver medicines. And I think it's one of the things that is happening. The disruption in the global supply chain, maybe later I'll pick up the mind of maybe Professor Paul on what the future looks like in supply chain. So I do a lot of KMS, so especially if you're interested in management systems, GDP, GSP, that's my area of expertise, and you're interested, if you like to know more, please reach out later. So I know the primary target for this webinar is for pharmacists, but I know there could be non-pharmacists or people outside of Uganda that is joining this webinar. So Pharmaceutical Society of Uganda is the professional body for pharmacists in Uganda, and it's a body established by the Act of Parliament. And what PSU does is to set standards to promote good professional practice through enforcing ethical conduct of pharmacists. So the vision of PSU is to be a leader in ensuring professional excellence and securing the highest standards of pharmacy practice in the region. Right now, we present over 1,200 pharmacists in the country. This picture you're seeing is I think in April when the society donated some COVID products, hand sanitizers for fighting COVID-19 to the Ministry of Health. So about this webinar, so basically the idea, what we were thinking prior to organizing this webinar is to, a lot of people are interested in a career in global supply chain. But then the question is, how do you position yourself? What qualification, experience do you need? Who do you need to talk to? How do you go where you want to be? How do you position yourself? So that's really the discussion that we are having here, and we are very proud to have very very experienced and well accomplished speakers to share us their own personal experience of where they are at the moment, where they are coming from, and where they are. And probably, I know Professor Paul says he's a senior citizen, but I think he's probably still looking where he wants to go in his career. So I don't know if Josephine is here, my co-moderator. So I think Josephine might be having a technical problem, but so Josephine will join us a bit later. She's my co-moderator. She's the most interesting thing I know about her is she trained me in supply chain at Medical about, some years back, and I'm moderating this webinar with her. She's currently working as a consultant with Empower.
This is horrible. It has no network.
She was the procurement manager at Joint Medical.
Josephine, we can hear you now.
Yeah.
Your microphone seems to be working. Josephine, would you like to say a few words, or do you want Kennedy to continue? Maybe she can't hear us. Kennedy, please continue, and just send a message to, yeah, she's muted her microphone. That's fine. Kennedy, please go ahead.
So Empower, I will have a little later, Professor Paul will talk about what Empower does. But Empower basically, I think I first learned about Empower through the IAPHL group, that's International Session of Public Logisticians. And what I know about Empower, this is me talking from what I know, is that they run a lot of online programs that support pharmacies or build capacities of people who are interested in career in global supply chain. So they have a lot of digital learning programs. They do a lot of capacity building, and as well a lot of programs in global health. I know Professor Paul will talk a little bit later about this. So Empower, I support over 200,000 learners across the world in over 250 organizations and in over 100 countries. And I know Uganda itself, there are a lot of alumni of Empower in Uganda as well. And Josephine is one of them. So Empower, these are some of the clients, funders, and partners of Empower. So maybe after this webinar, we hope to see the logo of Pharmaceutical Society Uganda as one of the partners of Empower. So Empower has a variety of, is connected to a lot of organizations, professional bodies, Ministry of Health, UN agencies, colleagues in academia, and also the donor agencies like Commodities. I know Dr. Pamela has worked with MSH before, so all these bodies are connected to Empower. So I would like to introduce our first panelist. A lot of the members of Pharmaceutical Society Uganda might know her. So it's my privilege now to introduce Dr. Pamela Achii. Dr. Pamela Achii works as a health products management specialist with the Ministry of Health. She's also the vice president of Pharmaceutical Society of Uganda. And so Dr. Pamela, you're welcome to this webinar. We hope to learn as much as possible from your own experience in your career in supply chain. The next panelist or speaker is Professor Paul Lalvani. He's a managing director of Empower Group and also the deputy chair of People That Deliver. Dr. Paul has more than 25 years of experience in capacity building, procurement, and supply chain, access to medicines and technology. He has worked with Global Fund. I know Dr. Pamela also currently works with Global Fund, so they probably have a lot in common. He advises various UN agencies, international donors, and Ministry of Health. Then the last panelist for this webinar is Dr. Denis Denis, yeah, in French, but I think in English is Dr. Denis. So he's also a director of Empower in Europe. He has worked in the field of international health for the past 30 years, and he was a former executive director of UN8 in Geneva. He also worked with UN8 and also UNICEF. And most interestingly, he advises the chairman, CEO of CIPLA, and CIPLA is one of the leading manufacturers of medicines in Uganda. So a little bit later, we'll also hear from Dr. Denis on his kind of work relationship with CIPLA. So those are my speakers for this discussion, and so we'll just dive straight into the discussion. I think I'll pick Professor Paul first. Yes, Professor Paul, you can unmute yourself and just to get the conversation started on what attracted you in this space of work in global health supply chain or just supply chain, Professor Paul.
Happy to answer that. Kennedy, just a reminder, should we do that quick poll that we set just to warm up the participants so we know who they are, where they come from? It'll take a couple of minutes and I think it'll be quite interactive. What do you say?
All right, let me just launch the poll. That's fine. Yeah, so I think the poll is running. Yeah, so our participants can just tap in and participate in this quick poll, and we'll run it for about a minute. I don't see people participating. Yeah, people are participating. Yeah, people are participating. I can see.
By the way, Kennedy, as a panelist, I'm not able to click on it. Is that normal?
Yeah, it's normal. It's only for participants. So. Okay,
it's also good to read out the questions as well.
Right.
Just in case. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, we want to understand, the kind of people that are attending these webinars in terms of their sex, their age, and whether they are pharmacists or not, and which area of pharmacy do they practice in, and also their level of education in the supply chain. So we'll run this for about, I think about half of the people have participated so far. I'll end the poll and then display the results. Okay. Professor Paul, are you seeing the results?
Yeah, so this is good. Almost 40% females. That's good. Normally we see 25%. So in Uganda, we're seeing more activity of women in supply chain. That's good. What's your age? The highest bracket is less than 30. I'm feeling even older now. Wonderful. Okay. Good to see a lot of youth getting into this. Good time to be planning your career. And are you a pharmacist? 90% are. Very good. And I see it'll be interesting to also note the percent that aren't, what their background is, and maybe that can come up in discussions. And interestingly, in terms of those working in different sectors of pharmacy, we've got retail, hospital, and supply chain almost equal, about 30, 30, 30. Then we have other as well. There may be multiple add-ons as well. So industrial sales and marketing, very low, but quite a few in sales and public health as well. That's good. Level of education, a lot of people have certificate courses, some diplomas, some bachelors as well. We've got about 18% in the diploma, 16% in masters, and excellent to see 2 people with a PhD as well. Fantastic. That gives us a really good sense of the audience. Thank you.
Yes, Professor Paul. I think you can dive into it.
Right. And the question, just to repeat, was what attracted me to a career in public health supply chain? So, so what's interesting is after studying pharmacy, I pretty much tried everything that at the time I knew a pharmacist could do. I did clinical pharmacy, worked in a hospital for several years. did community retail pharmacy for a short time. That followed with industrial or manufacturing. Spent time doing R&D and manufacturing work in New Jersey, in America, and also in Nigeria for a few years. And having experienced those, I'd never worked in sales and marketing of pharmaceutical products. And after having done that, none of which over a period of 5 to 7 years held my attention, went back for school and education, studied management, and within that, operations management was an area which included supply chain that I focused on, among other components as well. And that was then a natural fit for me. I found myself first working in the private sector, and then after working in the private sector, ended up exploring a career in the development sector. And very interestingly, and just to connect the dots, the movement from private sector to public sector, I'll talk about that a little bit later on, some more as well. That was quite challenging. I had to reinvent myself. But what is interesting and why I really wanted to explore public health supply chain was it brought a national component and angle to it. Not just national, but a global way of working, not just at a company level. I was working at a global level, at a national level, and all the way down to the sub-national level. That was one really important aspect. I got to travel a lot, which was really exciting at the beginning and then really tiring towards the end. And some places I almost never came back from, but they were pretty exciting and challenging. And Denis Broun is to blame for at least one of those venues where I was sent to. I was shipped under his orders. And then I would say creating public health and social impact. What we are doing, and take the COVID crisis as an example, what we are doing is significant. The impact that we can create at scale is tremendous. And that was the other really main reason why that attracted me to health supply chain. Over.
Thank you. I'll put the same question. Josephine, we wanted to put you on the spot as well. You're a co-moderator, but also you work in the supply chain as well. So what attracted you, Josephine?
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, my network was bad. Hope you're hearing me now.
We can hear you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I missed introducing myself. My name is Josephine Katabaazi. I'm a pharmacist as well. I've been in the supply chain for the past 10 years. And basically, I started from the time when I was in a hospital setting, in Zambia Hospital, where I worked as the head of pharmacy department, and I was working both in clinical pharmacy and supply chain. Then later on, I ended up getting into a supply chain institution, which is GMS, and I worked there for 3.5 years. So basically, supply chain, what attracted me there basically was to serve the community in the best way I can. First of all, many times we found ourselves, many people kept on complaining about quality products. If they are quality products, then they are not affordable and all that. So what I basically wanted is to see that people can get quality products at the best price they can, at the best price possible. So I'm so into procurement, and I love sourcing, because that's where basically the value for money is realized. So in that case, I concentrate on that to make sure that we can get the quality products to all Ugandans at the best affordable price. So basically, that's what mainly attracted me there. And for me to do that course in postgraduate diploma of global health and procurement, global health procurement and supply chain management, I was really looking out for something which is online which I can do at my time of convenience, and which can give me a very good exposure to the world and to the to supply chain all over. Much as I've always worked in a more of a private sector, private, not for profit, I still love the fact that I can get to the global level of supply chain. So it was a very good course for me. I really liked it and opened my eyes in so many things. It is such a wonderful thing for all pharmacists to do. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Josephine. So to Pamela as well, Dr. Pamela, what I mean, did it happen by a mistake? It's okay if it happened by a mistake, but how did it end up in the supply chain world? What attracted you? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kennedy. Good afternoon, colleagues. I'm very happy to have all of you here join us in this interactive session. I'll go specific to the question that I have been asked and really to look at what attracted me into this field of practice. And it spans back into the time when I was actually in S6. And by S6, we mean pre-university entry. And I had applied to do medicine at a university. And I walked into a hospital with my sister. At that time, I think I was 18 years. And it was my first time to walk into a hospital. And I found a doctor that was actually managing mothers in the evening. It was not a very well lit hospital. And then I looked at the doctor, I was really overwhelmed. And I asked my elder sister that, is this what doctors do? And she said, yes, this is a doctor, this is what he's doing. And immediately when I got home, I told her, I am changing, I'm going to do pharmacy. And this is how I actually went to pharmacy school. However, in pharmacy school, I was very excited about drug development and really also looking at the clinical aspect. And of course, like any student, I studied the entire range of pharmaceutical business and in terms of the various range of the pharmacy career that I needed to study in the pharmacy school. And when I finished that, I felt that I really needed to do something in the area of policy, management, and practice. And for me, I felt and then realized that supply chain was actually the field that would give me that perfect blend. So immediately after my internship, there was a job advert, and it was Catholic Relief Services at the time that had advertised, you know, for a health supply chain specialist, an officer that was supposed to manage supply chain. And I had not understood very well what this role was. But what I knew was it was about medicine delivery in an HIV/AIDS setting. So I joined this employment, and immediately I realized that this is really the field that I wanted to do. And in fact, when I joined, I started dealing with complex issues. When we look at supply chain, sometimes we think that this is a very easy thing to do, and it is really something like a walk over. And I realized I needed my pharmacy skill in terms of clinical practice, in terms of understanding the medicine that you're dealing with. And this is actually the best area that where a pharmacist stands a very good chance to actually practice supply chain, because she has the knowledge, or he or she has the knowledge in terms of the medicine they are dealing with. They can understand the adverse events, you understand treatment regimens, and then it offers you opportunity to sit on the table with people who actually make decisions. And for me, I felt this was something very exciting for me. And of course, when I worked at CRS, I found this was very good, and it was my immediate entry into the field of HIV/AIDS. And for me, this is how I took up the supply chain work. And I have never regretted this practice, because it has offered me very good opportunity to interact with very many international organizations. Of course, currently at the Ministry of Health, I work with the Global Fund, and you're all familiar that the Global Fund supports HIV/AIDS, malaria, and TB. And of course, to be able to do this, you need to understand the treatment guideline. What are you dealing with? And then also you have to make very important decisions in terms of policy decisions that actually affect over, 43 million Ugandans. Everyone probably suffers from malaria. We have another 1 million of people who actually have HIV. And really, as Pamela, I am responsible for this. Supply chain has offered me very good opportunity to interact with all sorts of people from various walks of life, very many international organizations, but also practicing your career in a fulfilling way. And I'm very happy and very satisfied with what I chose to do. So this is what actually motivated me. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, Josephine, for the next set of questions.
To continue with you, Pamela, you were my classmate, we moved together, but then you managed to position yourself very well. And one time when I came to your office, I was like, wow, Pamela must have done something right. So how exactly would you have positioned yourself? I mean, how do you position yourself to get to the ladders and to get to where you are right now? And I believe you're continuing and moving ahead in years to come.
Thank you, Josephine, for that question. This career has been a long walk. And of course, you begin with the goal in mind. But even when the goal is not very clear, you can continue to improve it over time. And I think this is what exactly has happened for me. But the most important thing I have actually done is hard work and consistency.
Okay.
You know, when you come from pharmacy school, you realize that I know a lot, I am a medicine expert, but in a working environment, there is no expert at everything. We get to learn from all sorts of people. You learn from your immediate supervisor, you learn from a cleaner, I have learned from cleaners, you learn from your colleagues, and all this contribute to your success. But also the second thing I have deliberately done is to be able to share information. Information sharing is actually power. Once you are able to interact with people and work with your colleagues, then you'll actually be able to have very strong recommendations that can propel you very easily. And I have had very good recommendations, very strong recommendations in all the places I have worked, because I have left very good footprints. And because of those recommendations, then people look at you and they know that you can actually deliver. This work I have taken me to various tables, various areas of interaction. In my third year of working at the Ministry of Health.
Okay, thank you very much, Pam. Now let's look at the global context. Dr. Denis, how would you have positioned yourself on the global level to get all those titles? I mean, to be in supply chain for all these 30 years, those titles, I mean, so many people, many of us would have loved to get there or to get somewhere close to that. So just share with us how you managed to position yourself.
Denis, just before you start, Josephine, if you could just mute your microphone while Denis is speaking, it would help the sound quality.
Okay, fine, thank you.
Yes, thanks, Josephine. And among all the people who are there interested in supply chain, I must confess that I was not very much interested in it to start with. I'm a medical doctor, and then I did a lot of additional studies. I got a master's in biomathematics and master's in political science and economics, and I'm a specialist in tropical medicine, public health. And so I was not really prepared to do health supply chain at all. But it's just happened that working as a health economist, working on public health accounts, and finding the importance of the pharmaceutical expense, and then getting more into the details of how it came, and why is it that the pharmaceutical expenditures were so huge and actually irrational to a large way, that I got into this pharmaceutical sector. And as a young consultant, but many years ago, more than 30 years ago, I was involved in the rehabilitation of the central medical stores of Côte d'Ivoire, and then got into really the intricacies of how such a system of procurement and supply chain was working, and that got involved in the reform of it, involved in the procurement, and got more and more interested in pharmaceutical issues. And then, of course, I mean, read a lot, worked a lot. I think Pamela was right. You know, the thing is, you get into an issue, but you become credible in it if you become one of the best, if you work very hard and that you're consistent. I was lucky because I had an opportunity, but after that I worked a lot to become a decent expert of the pharmaceutical economics. And then a couple of years later, when I was recruited by the World Bank, I did quite a lot of supply chain and pharmaceutical economics there. And when the bank reorganized their services, which they used to do about every 2 years, I became the person in charge of the whole pharmaceutical sector for the World Bank. And I was there in charge of this sector for 5 years in Washington. And of course, this has changed my orientation, which was much more medical and public health, to something much closer to the pharmaceutical issues, to public health, to issues of global procurement. And I've never regretted it. Thanks.
Oh, thank you very much, Dr. Denis. To me, it's really a challenging one. We go to Professor Paul. Professor Paul being the director of Empower Health. I mean, for me, you mean a lot to me. So maybe you can tell us something about how you positioned yourself, how you advise other people to position themselves in different areas where they are at workplace and all that, such that they can make a bigger impact in the society in this supply chain area.
Thank you very much.
Professor Paul.
Thank you. First of all, I think it's worth sharing that when you say, what deliberate steps we took to move into the area of supply chain, I remember graduating from pharmacy school and exploring my work options. Supply chain and public health supply chain was never an option that was available to us. No one informed us about it in pharmacy school. What I'm really glad to see in our participants is that the largest group is less than 30. I didn't hear about the opportunities in global health supply chain till I was in my mid-30s. So the fact that there's a large group, cohort of that age group, it's perfect time to start planning and moving in that direction. So I'm glad you're here. That's number one. Then in terms of the deliberate steps, once I did find out about this area of work, the first one, and this is pre-LinkedIn days, and again, the young crowd, the young 30s, are completely connected through Facebook and LinkedIn and all these other networks. I actually relied on my alumni, which then led to, you've heard of the term 6 degrees of separation. It was the 6th degree of separation was actually Denis Broun heading the pharmaceuticals division at the World Bank when I first met him almost 25 years ago. And subsequently, it was the opportunity with Management Sciences for Health and the World Bank and my first public health project in Papua New Guinea that kicked off all of this. So first thing is being aware of it, and you all are now aware of this potential professional direction that you can take. It's now about learning, relearning, reinventing and re-engineering yourself in this particular area. The number of new topics and the breadth of topics that you need to know in procurement and supply chain is tremendous. And Pamela alluded to that as well already. And if you want to grow and if you want that wonderful Pamela's office, which I'm very curious to see now, you would need to put in that hard work. You would need to learn a bunch of stuff, and you would need to continuously keep learning. And you'll be hearing terms that'll keep coming at you, whether it's drone deliveries or blockchain or machine learning. All of these what appeared to be out of the ordinary or somewhat irrelevant to us will be very relevant in the next 5 years. And supply chain and procurement are very much technology based, as much as they are, you have to be a lawyer when it comes to contracts, and you have to have other components as well. So I would say learn, learn, learn. And it was for this reason and this purpose, we in fact set up our organization to provide continuous learning. It was a request from several of our members, our students, and our alumni, which set me on this path. So with that, back to you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Paul. So we'll just, so I mean, I think working in a global, in kind of a global environment comes with its own challenges. So I'll pick Dr. Pamela's mind on, what are some of the challenges that you experience in your career in supply chain and global health supply chain, and how have you been able to overcome some of those challenges? Dr. Pamela?
Thank you very much, Kennedy, once again for that question. Yes, the supply chain comes with a number of challenges. Some of them, you see them in the media, you see them in the newspapers. In Uganda here, you wake up in the morning and you've been told this health facility does not have medicine, or we do not have funding, for example, to access the medicine. I have faced very many challenges, but I think I stand in a place where I believe I have managed most of those challenges. I will take you back slightly to 2017 when we had just won a grant of the Global Fund. And this grant was going to take care of only just about 40% of the need for Ugandans. And I had been deployed in what we call the quantification unit within the Ministry of Health. And this unit really is what we would call a central processing unit, because over these years, I have been able to attract a number of pharmacists to be able to sit in this unit with the support of Management Sciences for Health, but also now the Global Fund. And of course, this unit does quantification and supply planning, and of course, placement of orders. And this is the bloodline of this health sector in Uganda. It is well known within all departments of the Ministry of Health, but also within the development partners. However, there are enormous challenges that we have faced. One is the issue of data quality to actually inform your planning. When you sit into a meeting and you've been asked that, like last week, you informed us that, for example, Uganda needs only $100 million to actually, access ARVs. And then the next week you're coming and telling them, oh, there was partner A that did not fulfill their needs, and you need to change that position. And then it begins to poke holes into actually your area of practice. But what I have consistently done is, one, to demonstrate that this need is actually a real need. And this need has been thought through. This need has been calculated using the best method possible, and we need funding. I remember when I did this work, I told the nation that we needed $92 million to actually procure ARVs for Uganda. And it caused alarm in Uganda. It caused alarm actually globally for all partners who are supporting this treatment in Uganda. And very many people came on board to ask us, how did you come up with this? I think you only need $1 million for Uganda to actually support this. And I told them, no, I need $92 million. Every possible expert was brought on board. And this was very challenging for us because you're a very young girl. You're actually working in a very, very sensitive department. And you're also poking holes into the contribution of other development partners that are actually saying, yes, we are supporting this country. But on the ground, you do not have actually all this funding available. And I actually consistently presented the same picture. And guess what happened? Partners came on board. And in that year, we actually got another $36 million from the Global Fund to actually support Uganda. And the US government eventually responded and also started supporting the public sector to procure ARVs. This is how I was able to overcome this challenge.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'll bring Dr. Denis into the conversation on, I know you work with the World Bank and you also work with a lot of pharmacists. So for pharmacists who are interested in a career in supply chain, what are some of those specific qualifications do they need for them to get into the supply chain? Then there's also a question from one of the participants on, people say, should you do an MBA, should you do an MPH? Myself, I'm doing a pharmaceutical and health supplies chain management. So what are some of those specific requirements in terms of qualification that would be required for pharmacists to join a career in global supply chain? Dr. Denis?
Well, there are so many possibilities that pharmacists have to go into further studies. I mean, that's one of the good things. A diploma as a pharmacist opens the door to a lot of additional training which are possible. And to work with this area of global supply chain or with pharmaceutical management at the international level, you can get into pharmaceutical management, you can get into pharmaceutical industry, a specialization in quality assurance, quality control. This is in very high demand. You can work with clinical trials. That is something which is, look at the COVID today. People who are specialized in clinical trials are going to be in very high demand. Pharmacoepidemiology, post-marketing surveillance, which is one of the biggest issues coming up in the future of pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceutical regulation, one of the most important topics, which is so much in demand these days. The whole issue of medical devices and implants, which is growing very much. Logistics, distribution. Now we are getting more into the standard pharmaceutical supply chain issues. Procurement management, this can be studied. And then you have a whole set of things which are coming up as things of the future, where there is a lot of opening for the future, which is pharmaceutical data management. I think it's probably one of the most promising areas. Public health, environment, and technological risks. Now, this is something that some universities start to train for, and the people who graduate from there are very much in demand. I told you about devices, implants, and artificial intelligence for devices. This is also something which has a lot of future. So you can look at what are the possibilities of training. They are endless. There are a lot of topics where there is going to be a need for expertise. There's going to be jobs openings, etc. But I would come back to what Pamela said. Once you are specialized somewhere and you get a foot in the door and you get a first mission, you're going to get your second one only if people see that you're bringing a value added that no one brought before you, that you have very hardworking, that you are really dependable and able to go forward. So it's not so much what you have studied, which is going to count. It's the amount of intensity you are going to put into the work that you're delivering, which is going to make the difference. And I would again say what Paul was saying is actually what got me into distance learning and e-learning is keep training all the time. The moment you stop learning, you lose value. It's when you're still bringing new ideas, new competencies, new intelligence to your job or your future job that some other people will want to have you, that you will get greater responsibilities, that international organization will be open to you, etc. And this is why this permanent access to training is so essential. And this is why I must say e-learning, distance learning, is so important today, and because it used not to be the case. I mean, you went and tried to find money to buy you a plane ticket and the per diems to attend a course of 1 week or 10 days far away. It costed a lot of money. It would disrupt everything. You would have to stop working, leave your job, and go for this training. Whereas when you do distance learning, you can do it at your pace. You can improve all the time, and this is one of these new things which is open to the young pharmacists of today, which was not available 10 years ago. So these are the types of things I would sum up with. I'm sorry for being a bit garrulous, Kennedy. Apologize.
No, no, it's fine. So I'll just bring, you talk about, the e-learning, and I know Empower has a lot of, e-learning, opportunities for people who are interested in a career in supply chain. So I'll just bring Professor Paul to tell us on some of the things that, some of the courses that Empower is offering for those who are interested in a career in supply chain. I'm going to just share a few slides. Yeah, Professor Paul, you can take it on.
Thank you, Kennedy. As we've been speaking, I've been looking at some of the questions that are coming in as well. And I'll try and connect the dots with what I'll be presenting and also what's being asked of others as well. many of you have asked, so what kind of opportunities are there? What should we be studying? What are the different options? The one good thing is, well, COVID has been a catalyst, a crisis which has led for people to stop doing face-to-face. Classrooms have stopped, universities have stopped, and everybody's moved online. Well, we didn't need COVID to start doing this, and we did this 5 years ago, listening to the ministries of health, listening to the donors. They were already saying that, look, we are tired of paying per diem. We're tired of people taking holidays when what we really need is capacity and we need continuous learning. And so we started this journey a long time ago. Imagine getting a certificate course, a degree, a diploma for a fraction of the cost while you're still working and being with your family as opposed to traveling and leaving. Some of these courses are even free, and we encourage you to start those free courses first before you move on to some of the paid ones. You try them out as well. So the first one that I would suggest that you definitely explore if you're interested is a 5-week course, and we designed this deliberately after we stopped being able to take, we used to take international staff, international individuals, pharmacists, doctors, nurses to Geneva to spend 1 week there. And we used to take them to Global Fund, to UNAIDS, to UNDP and other organizations, WHO of course, and you would get to see how they do access to medicines, procurement, supply chain, what do they do, and you get to interact with them. And it was an incredible eye-opening experience for the individuals, many of them who would see their own compatriots in these organizations, feeling that how empowering that is, that they could potentially also be there working at that level at some day. But all of that has come to an end, and we moved everything online anyway. And all of that knowledge and information can be captured through this 5-week online course. This is one example of what you could do. And this is not just for pharmacists, it's for public health. Certificate courses, that's fine. Go ahead, Kennedy, next one. So these certificate courses in procurement and supply chain, if you're focused only in procurement or only in forecasting or inventory management, you don't need to do the entire 1-year, 2-year course or master's, what have you. You can do targeted certificate courses on these particular topics. Whatever information you need is available through both the Pharmaceutical Society of Uganda or directly with us. Next. If you are looking for a longer 1-year program, this is available in English and in French. This is a 1 year, but what's unique about this is we do, before you start this course, and then continuously throughout the year, we provide technical assistance. Not just on the course, not just on the learning, you have access to our global faculty, Andy Barraclough, Denis Broun, myself, and at least half a dozen others who will help you on any topic that you're working on, whether it's forecasting or contracting, whatever it might be. So you have continuous technical assistance while you're studying. So both things are available. And this is something that donors are very keen on, and they funded. In fact, half the students globally have been funded by some organization or other, including USAID, Global Fund, and various others, European Union, among others as well. Next. Is it stuck, Kennedy? There we go. No, that's okay. So a UNDP course, for those who are interested in fundamentals, the UNDP course is also available. It's an Empower UNDP course that we've developed for them. We host it, manage it, and maintain it. And this is a list of all our different courses. You can see them in which languages, who are the partners, and how they're available. Next. And the first question people ask is, what's the cost? They range anywhere from $100 to $2,500. And many of them, through scholarship, you end up getting it at a much lower cost or no cost if you can get an organization that can fund it, or sometimes we're able to get funding for you as well. So that's the entire range. Kennedy, back to you.
Thank you. I'll just, Josephine, are you seeing any questions from the chat box that you might want to the panelists?
Maybe you can project them. Could you project?
Let me just pick some question.
Yeah.
Let me just pick some question to. This one goes to. I think Dr. Pamela. This is a question from a participant who is asking. You know, he says he has worked he did his internship in supply chain management and worked with the head of department. And for the past 2 years, he has been in community pharmacy practice, generally supplying drugs to primary healthcare centers and others. So he really loved supply chain management, especially at the global level. So I don't know, I think we're trying to answer this question. The question is, how can he achieve this goal? You know,
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you once again, Kennedy. I think the issue is really to start small, of course, but also starting it right. And really to be able to expand in this area and also be able to be picked up and get to a place where you're like, Professor Paul, you must have had the opportunity to interact with a range of people, but also organizations that actually have influence. So for this colleague who really has done this course, I think it is very good that you have done the course, but now I think it is important that you actually start doing applied, applying the knowledge you've actually gained in terms of practice. And today there was actually an advert, quite a number of adverts that actually posted 4 positions that we need at the Ministry of Health. And these are people who will be seconded by Management Sciences for Health, and I'll work with them directly. And this is a very, very excellent point to actually start with, because then you have a number of people to mentor you, a number of experts to work with. You'll have advantage to sit in very many technical working group meetings. You'll be able to sit in guidelines writing. You'll be able to actually implement some of these guidelines, interact with health facilities, and then from there you can actually advance your career from that place. So I think that if this colleague of ours has really done this course, is very good, but I encourage you to apply. I encourage pharmacists to apply for jobs. Of course, these jobs are full-time, because someone today asked me, can I do this as a part-time? And I indicated to them, no, we need all your feet, in this place. Someone has to be fully available to actually work. So when you really want to do this work, you need to give it your best, give it your all, be present, try to be consistent, try to do the work, be present and be available, and people will actually make use of you. And within a short time, you will see yourself actually growing very fast. So my advice is, please apply for these jobs. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll bring Dr. Denis. There's a question from Patrick. He wants to inquire about the role and current applicability of pharmacoeconomics, especially in the drug supply chain sector. Dr. Denis?
Well, the problem is that there are 2 areas there. I mean, one is, let's say, the macroeconomics of pharmaceuticals, which are definitely important, but they have relatively few jobs attached to them. And then you have the whole issue of pharmacoeconomics, which has to do with what the pharmaceutical industry is working on, in particular, how to get the best possible price for a pharmaceutical company trying to get their product on the market. It's also how to prove to a pricing organization, wherever they may be, that your product is indeed bringing cost effectiveness and is better than what there is already on the market. These are the types of jobs that people have to do with the pharmacoeconomics. The overall, macroeconomics, what happens to the economics of essential drugs, the economics of new products, the economics of antiretrovirals as a whole, etc. These are very few opportunities. They exist. There are some people who do that. I have spent actually most of my career doing it, but it's not really an opening as such. Having a good understanding of economics, being able to understand how you calculate cost effectiveness, how you take a whole set of calculations and understand how people build an economic model for public health. These are things which are useful, which are important. You may learn that in a pharmacoeconomics specialization. There are several universities proposing that. Or you can go for just pure masters in economics in addition to your pharmaceutical job, but it's going to be hard. It's not very easy to do. But these are the options. In general, most of the people who work on the economics of pharmaceuticals work in the industry on the issues of cost effectiveness, pricing, and reimbursement.
Thank you. So, Professor Paul, there are a number of questions about the courses Empower offers. I think you'll be able to see some of them in the chat box. There's a question from Joseph. Do you offer courses that are SIPS, I think CITL certification, like SIPS? Do you have such? Then there's someone asking that you should reduce the cost, I think the fee for the course, to enable more students to enroll. Yes, Dr. Professor Paul, please.
Yeah, let me take a few. I think there's some really good questions here. Let me, I'll just scan through and respond to a few. The first one. So what we do is SIPS and CILT, we partner with them. What they offer is not, and we've had long discussions with them in terms of why what we're offering and what they're offering are complementary. And so, for example, CILT Tanzania has partnered with us where they offer their global courses, which are not health focused, and our courses are health, pharmaceuticals, rational use of medicines. So by the time you finish our course, you also have significant knowledge of health commodities as well. So we partner with CILT and SIPS. We don't, they're not part of SIPS accreditation. That's one. In terms of cost, I totally acknowledge that. So two things. What we're offering, I'll mention two things. And when we started this and when we looked for partnerships and global partnerships and the costing, a similar course being offered is normally somewhere in right now between £8,000 to £15,000. We're offering from the range that I said. Sometimes they're complete scholarship and they're free if we can get them from our donors. And that's what we're trying to do. Our whole target market is low and middle income countries. We know it's really difficult. We know the GDP per capita is very low in these countries. And on average, some people are earning maybe less than $1,000 a month. Some may be higher as well. There's a whole range from what we've seen our students make between $800 to about $5,000 a month. And for those who absolutely can't afford it, we look for mechanisms to support them. We look for scholarships, and we're trying to support in every way. The larger the enrollment, the lower the cost, and that's where we are trying to go with all this as well. Okay. And what's interesting is now Global Fund and others are really interested in funding these courses, which means it'll be free for the participants, especially if you're working for the Ministry of Health or an NGO that's working with the government as well. Then for those who are looking for opportunities to try and test out this area, what we have done for several people, if you have strong writing skills, strong analytical skills, is given internships, which are unpaid. You don't have to travel, you don't have to leave, it's part-time, you can do it on weekends, or work on consulting projects, which gives you and we work with WHO, we work with several organizations, you've seen the brands, but that gives you the experience, which goes on your CV, but in return, you also do some work and you're proactively supporting us, and it could be in any of the areas of supply chain. So if that is of interest, please send your details, your CV, and write a cover letter in terms of what you're doing. Send it to Kennedy, to PSU, send it to us, and we'll follow up as well. Let me just pause there. There may be others as well, but I know we're running out of time. But back to you, Kennedy.
Thank you. So let me just launch a poll just for people who are interested in this. So our participants can, out of the courses Professor Paul has mentioned, which one would you be interested in? And are you able to, study online from your home or office? So let's just spend a couple of seconds to respond to that. As our panelists, let me just see if we have more questions. Professor Paul, as people participate, there's someone asking if you have any partnership in Kenya, if you could respond to that. for someone who is based in Kenya, if you look at
so we right now we have a partnership with a supply chain organization, but not with a university or the Pharmaceutical Society of Kenya. So if you can help us create those partnerships in Kenya, so that we can support and reach out to our Kenyan colleagues, happy to do that. We've done several projects in Kenya, and we've teamed up with Freight in Time, which is a UPS partner. So for practical experience, we have an MOU with them, and that's another really strong connect. They do a lot of work for USAID, Global Fund, private sector, fantastic organization. So we have that partnership, but you don't have an academic or professional association partnership yet, but happy to explore. Thank you.
Well, Professor Paul, I believe you can see the results. So interestingly, for the second, I think 100% people are interested in doing courses from home or work. But out of the courses that you have mentioned, a lot of people are actually interested in the international careers in global health, and I believe they should visit the Empower website and also sign up for that accordingly. I just want to scan if we have more questions that probably our panelists can. Someone is in Senegal. Are there any projects, Professor Paul? Someone is asking. In Senegal.
Yes, we are working in Senegal as well with the Ministry of Health and supply chain. It's on the on vaccine supply chain and capacity building. So there is an opportunity there. Of course, my French is quite terrible. That's where we bring in Denis Broun. Besides having all these degrees and experiences, he's reasonably good at French. In fact, he struggles a bit with English, as you can see. But yes, so he'll help coordinate, and we have team members in Senegal as well.
Well, thank you. Josephine, anything else from your end, or we just go in the concluding part by asking the parting shots?
I saw a question to Pamela where someone asked about any scholarships, any kinds of financial support from PSU or from any donor agency for pharmacists to pursue those courses. So Pamela, something about scholarships.
Yes, thank you very much once again, Josephine, for that question, and also to the colleagues that have asked. PSU is currently running a scholarship, however, it is undergraduate scholarship. That is what we are currently running. We do not have postgraduate scholarship. But again, I think we can see how we can work with Empower to see how we can, for example, maybe build up a partnership where some people who are interested can actually take up some of these courses. But yes, we only have undergraduate support for now. Thanks.
And what about the ministry or Global Fund and all those other agencies which you work with? Scholarships
thank you. Yes, thank you very much, Josephine. The scholarship at the ministry that is currently available is through the World Bank. Is currently available, and I think that pharmacists that actually want to practice in the area of public health, but also in health products management and supply chain, like this can actually take advantage of. So there are some scholarships at the ministry. Global Fund offers some online courses for consultants and people who want to actually practice and try to do consultancies, but it doesn't hurt to actually take up this course because they open your mind as well to learning, but also really learning the broader supply chain management. So I would also encourage my colleagues to actually check up on the Global Fund website, but there are courses for people who want to be consultants. Thanks.
If I could just build on Pamela's response, we've, in the case of DRC, Empower signed an MOU with the head of the pharmaceutical services and the supply chain organization. And then more than 100 scholarships have been provided to Ministry of Health staff, either at the center or in the region, from World Bank, Global Fund, and another European donor as well. We could apply similar approaches for Uganda as well. We can team up with both with PSU and also with the Ministry of Health. I should also mention we just signed a project with the Global Fund to work in Tanzania to support supply chain e-learning courses that are being designed specifically for government of Tanzania, because they're introducing a new LMIS and they need to train more than 600 people. And the only smartest, fastest way was through digital learning. So we're designing a specific course for the Tanzanian government, and there's a leadership and change management component, and then there is the e-learning for the LMIS technical component. Altogether, about 600 people are being trained over the next 6 to 7 months. So again, that's something that we could explore with the Ministry of Health in Uganda with any of these donors. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Paul and Pamela. That is great. So maybe we could have our closing remarks. Any points you have for us to close the session, Professor Paul?
I would actually re-emphasize a couple of things the other panelists have said, and what in fact has come up several times, is it's really first of all, I'm really glad that the majority of the group that's already exploring their careers is less than 30, is younger than 30, which means you have time and you are planning and you're thinking ahead. You're thinking ahead more than I am, because remember, I was older than 30 when I figured out there was this career option. So whatever I've achieved, you guys can easily outshine that, and that should not be very difficult, okay? You should attempt not necessarily to have a bigger office than Pamela's, but at least move in that same area in terms of being able to grow. And like she said, it's hard work, it's hard work. As we say, it's all about grit, it's persistence, it's moving in that direction. And, and as Denis emphasized, and he talked about the other technologies, there will be so many new technologies and approaches. The pace of change is going to be so rapid. There's 450 new products right now for infectious diseases in the pipeline. Many of them will hit the public health supply chains. There are diagnostics, there are devices, there are lab reagents. And, and pharmacists often struggle with biomedical engineering products. We don't understand them very well because we were never taught that. Now throw in all the artificial intelligence and all the other components that are also coming up as well. It's going to be extremely challenging, and all you need to do is keep an open mind. The youth have an advantage over those who've already been out of school for more than 2-3 decades, or those who have a closed mindset. So keep learning and keep applying and keep looking for opportunities. Public health, global health will transform tremendously in the coming 5 years, and you guys can position yourself really strongly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Paul. Dr. Denis, do you have something for us to close the meeting?
I don't know if it's that's closing, but I would re-emphasize what Paul was saying. You know, as you were told at the beginning, I'm advising the chairman of CIPLA, and I've been pretty happy to be able to support CQCIL in Uganda and help them introduce new products, etc. And they do superbly. I think the country, Uganda, is proud to have such a company there, and they can definitely be the only sub-Saharan African company which is pre-qualified by WHO, which supports the whole global fund, etc. It's really unique. And as I advised this chairman, Dr. Yusuf Hamid, and I know he came to Uganda somewhere years ago. Dr. Yusuf Hamid just turned 85. Every morning, he does 3 hours of scientific reading. Always, never fails. He sends me references of all of them, and I have to do the same, because I have to read them too to be at the same level. It's how you keep yourself at the best possible level. You don't think that things are going to come by themselves. Opportunities will come, and then you have to be smart and quick to grab them. But to stay at the highest level, there's no alternative to hard work. And the advantage that we have with these new technologies that there are, etc., is that this hard work is easier to get access to than it was years ago. So really, I would say you all have a much brighter and much more open of possibilities future than we had 30 years ago. I would say, as you show your interest so much in your questions and in your reactions, grab the opportunities, because you're really going to have fun.
Oh, thank you very much. That's so great. Someone who has turned 85 and is always up to date. Very, very great. Many of us don't like reading, most especially Africans. So Pamela, can you give some closing remarks? Anything you have for your colleagues, for us?
Thank you, Josephine. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, pharmacists who have been able to join. Pharmacy is a very noble profession, and we are very proud of that in Uganda. And I know that for you to be a pharmacist, really, you know that you're a very smart person. But as you grow and as you enter into various fields, you realize that being smart alone is not enough. And this is what I would like to inform my colleagues, it's not enough. We must be open to continuous learning. We must be receptive. We must be adaptable to change, okay? And we must be consistent in the work that we are actually doing, because then that is when we are able to leave a very good trail and a very good mark. And with that, you'll enter into a phase of your career where you're in a mode of a sponsored movement. You're just going to be recommended. You won't even have to struggle with all these applications for a job. But based on recommendation, for example, from Professor Paul, from Dr. Denis, and from the people you know, these are the people who actually determine your next career level. So we should not take other people for granted. The people we work with, we must pay attention to them. We must work with them very closely. We must be consistent in what we are doing. And of course, we need to work hard. I'll keep emphasizing this. Like Dr. Denis said, there is no alternative to hard work. I really wish you all very well, and I hope this has been a very good session. From my side, I'm still available in case you want to interact with me after this session, and we can speak more about our career in the pharmacy sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pamela. Thank you, our dear panelists. We are so glad. I believe every pharmacist and any other person on the group who is listening has really picked a word or two. I take the mic back to Kennedy. Kennedy.
Thank you. So just a vote of thanks to Dr. Denis, Professor Paul, Dr. Pamela, and my co-moderator Josephine, and for everyone who has taken time to join this webinar. We hope you've been able to learn something from it. We have the contacts. There are a number of questions that were raised, and we have not been able to respond to all of them. In case you want to reach out directly to the panelists, we have put their email address in the chat box. So they are very good people, very nice people. They always respond to you. As you leave the webinar, there's a feedback form that you should fill to help us improve on these webinars. We have a video for those who are interested. It's a video about Empower. For those who are interested in watching, can stay on and watch this video about Empower. But thank you everyone for joining us for this webinar. So let me just bring this video up on my screen.
I believe it's about 3 minutes.
Yep.
Welcome to the Empower Group, a global organization with a mission to transform the way people learn, work, and save lives. We execute our mission by working through 3 centers and organizations: the Center for Leadership and Development, the Center for Digital Learning and Animation, and the Empower School of Health.
To date, we have delivered more than 1 million hours of training in over 100 countries to thousands of students in all areas of public health, such as disease management, immunization, antimicrobial resistance, supply chain management, regulatory affairs, access to medicines, and so on.
We implement these programs by partnering with organizations which include ministries of health, UN agencies, civil society organizations, and the private sector. We are transforming the approach of capacity building by moving away from expensive classroom-based training and introducing digital and blended learning. We design comprehensive and innovative learning strategies, which include web-based trainings that are built on Empower's open source learning management solution. We design content that is customized to the learner's requirements, including micro-learning and content in local languages. And for more complex topics, we design content using virtual and augmented reality to provide a more immersive learning experience. Another unique feature built into our learning strategy is our adaptive assessment tool, which allows learners and managers to review their growth over time and also compare their outcome with peers in their own organization or even with peers from other countries. Finally, we like to make learning fun, and so we bring elements of animation and games into our content and learning designs.
And with this, we have the ambition of being able to reach much larger numbers of people, reaching all the actors of the primary care system, all the community workers at the last mile. This is how we can help transform systems of health and improve their performance. We have a great team, among them former chiefs of states, former ministers of health, former high-level diplomats, specialists in public health, in supply chain, in training, and of course, in information technology.
For more information, please visit our offices in Geneva, New York, New Delhi, Dakar, and Kathmandu. For more information, you can also contact us at www.empoweringmillions.org.
Well, I think it's a very nice video, and thank you, everyone. So in case you want to reach out to Empower, please visit the website, and also feel free to reach out to...
The UK is reported to have turned to Japan in its search for 5G network technology. But can anyone fill the Huawei void? And what...
Oh, technology. So I think the webinar has ended.
Yes.
Yeah, let me just bring this back. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you to Pamela, Professor Paul, Professor Denis, and we hope to keep in touch.
Bye.
All the best. Thank you so much.